Thank you, colleagues, for joining us. Today is our last webinar for the month of August. We'll be having other webinars for other months to follow. My name is Sediko from Progressive Socio-Economic Investment Institute Trust. I'm the founder and the trustee of the Progressive Socio-Economic Investment Institute Trust. Today, our focus will be on dismantling gender inequalities in the agricultural sector, focusing on what must be done to close the gender gap. Let me first put a disclaimer and say, I am speaking as a founder and the trustees of Progressive Socio-Economic Investment Trust and nothing else. The views that I'll be raising here are the views of Progressive Socio-Economic Investment Institute Trust, not the views of any organization that I might be linked with. Like I said, today's topic will be about dismantling gender inequalities in the agricultural sector. Our discussions will be about what must be done to close the gender gap in the agricultural sector. For every living being that you see, there is a farmer behind. We all need the farmers for us to survive. But the reality is the agricultural sector, like any other organizations or sectors, have gender inequalities. Let me provide some statistics first to prepare our discussions and to prepare a ground for our panelists to present their lived experiences in the agricultural sector. Also, let me officially welcome all of you and also extend a warm welcome to the Minister Thoko Didiza, who is in our midst, who will be giving the closing remarks after our discussions. Feel free to engage. Our webinars are an interactive sessions, and everybody is most welcome to make some inputs. If you look at South African population from the Stats SA, currently we have got about 58 million people in our country. And the female population constitutes 51.2% of the overall population of the country. So in terms of the numbers, we've got over 30 million females in this country and about 28 million males in this country. So our population, the women or females are a majority in our country. If you look at the stats from the Commission for Employment Equity, their 2019-2020 reports indicate that at the top management in the agricultural sector, males constitute 81.6% of the top management in the agricultural sector. And females are only 18.4%. This happens in a country where the females are the majority in terms of the population. If you look at the same report of the Commission for Employment Equity, it says clearly that at the senior management level in the agricultural sector, the males constitute 73% in the agricultural sector. And the females constitute the lesser percentage. There's a typo there. The males are about 73% and the females are lesser to that 73%. Let's look at the stats from the land audit report. If you look at the number of the individual landowners by gender, you'll realize that in the Eastern Cape, in terms of the individual landowners by gender, the majority of the males, which is 53%, owns the land in the Eastern Cape, 60% of males in the Free State, 56% in Gauteng, 42% in KZN, 51% in Limpopo, 55% in Mpumalanga, 46% in Northwest, 63% in Northern Cape, and 56% in Western Cape. An overall total of individual land ownership by gender, males constitute 52%, and females constitute around 34%, and others constitute 14%. One can conclude, looking at these stats, that yes, there is gender inequalities in the agricultural sector. Because for one to do agriculture, also you require land, and majority of males own the land. If you look at the top management and the senior management in the agricultural sector, still you see males dominating those sectors. I was laying a foundation for our panelists today to do their presentations, and we'll have an interactive session. I welcome you, colleagues. Like I said, feel free to engage, and let's have a fruitful discussion on how can we stop the gender gap in the agricultural sector. The first panelist will be Sanda Poswayo from the Eastern Cape. She will give us her lived experience and the challenges that she's facing in the agricultural sector. Over to you, my fellow panelists. Sendayo, over to you.
Okay, greetings. My name is Sanda Poswayo from East Talandwe Farming. I'm the Managing Director of East Talandwe. Today I'll be focusing on what the challenges in the agri sector for females and the solutions. The South African government contributes and celebrates women in the agricultural sector, giving funding, which was even announced this year that the president announced the funding that will go to South African women. But the problem within this sector is that the ability to own and inherit, control land properly with this vital for her ability to access resources, participate in the economy. Women are not allowed to have their own land and the property, which is for economic growth. So those are one of the challenges that I think women face. In many countries, including South Africa, the Constitution and international obligations promise equal protection and equality with regards to accessing economic benefits. The reality is that the laws and practice continue to constrain women's rights and discriminate in participating, with the high levels of gender-based violence in this. In South Africa, many women do not have legal ownership rights to the land on which they live and work because they are dependent on spouses and land ownership patterns through relatives due to plural legal system and customary laws. The latest audit on land ownership trends in the country, which was reported in 2019 by News 24, reported by Untabiseng Molega, reflects Africans constitute 79% of the population and individual direct owning 1.2% of the land. The land and audit also shows that whites own 72% of total agricultural holdings, coloreds own 15%, Indians 5%, and Africans 4%. Women only own 13% of farms and agricultural land, while men own 71%. So those are the challenges that women face. And with our customary laws, it's not easy for a woman to have ownership of land or inherit land. So as much as the government provides sponsors and funding, but with that in mind, women don't have much ownership on land, which has been reported as 13%. So what can be done, like the solutions, is that when there is land redistribution, women could be had, like give land to women, give land to girl child, so that they are able to contribute in the economic sector of agriculture. Because as much as we celebrate, since it's Women's Month, we celebrate women, but those are still challenges for a woman or a girl child to own their own land without having inherited from their spouses. So in order for women mostly to have land, it has to be through their husbands, or it's very hard because our culture has not changed from where women are able to own their own land. So I think those are one of the biggest challenges, because funding is there, but women cannot own their own challenges. And our customary laws and the laws have discriminated against women in land ownership. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sanda. You have indicated two key points, which is one, the customary laws that discriminate on women in terms of land ownership. And you said it will be ideal for government to consider giving the girl child and women in general priority when they're doing the issue of land. Please, in a nutshell, because you're already in farming and you are facing some challenges except the issues of land ownership, just give us your lived experiences in terms of the other challenges that you are facing as a female who's within the agricultural sector. What are the other challenges except land ownership?
I think for us, since we are females and we are 3 males that own the company is Talandwe, we are graduates. Besides the fact that we got funding from NYDA and all, our largest challenge is machinery, because, you know, as a woman, you can go there and think, okay, I can do this. But when you have to, there's less practice of women driving tractors. Women don't have the ability, okay, let me not say the ability, the strength to use the machinery. So as much as we can own the business, we have to employ men to do the work, like being part of the farming part. So we can be the brains behind, but the machinery and having to work as women, like we have to be in the garden and all, it's quite strenuous for us. So I think one of the challenges is masculinity, which we don't have.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll allow our participants to engage and make some inputs. I just want to go to our second panelist, Molokadi. If you're around, please switch on your camera so that we can take you. Molokadi. Looks like she's not yet around. We can take some inputs while we are waiting for Molokadi from our participants on the challenges that are faced by women. Let's take some from the panel members or the participants. Any input from participants on how to assist the likes of Zanda on the challenges that they're facing? She indicated that the issues land ownership. Secondly, the machinery. She spoke about the strength in terms of operating particular machineries, because she's saying some machineries requires them to appoint male to operate those machineries. I will take in a hand from Menela Mujanaga. Will be the first one, Menela Mujanaga.
Good morning, colleagues. As Ntatera Olote has already said, I'm Nella Mojanaga and I'm from the Northwest. There are two matters that I'd like to talk on. The first one is the legal ownership of land. In the state, there is land that is owned by public works. And I think we can leverage this to benefit women. Because if the customary law and the legal ownership is a matter that is difficult to get over, then this land and public works must be made available for women with the resources, because does not only assist to give them land, they need capital to work on the land. The second point that she raised that actually brought back a lot of bad memories is the matter of machinery, the lady from East Talandwe. You see, one of the things that we do well as Africans is to have collective ownership. And usually when we have collective ownership, if you go to any a black farmer, you find that they go into partnership with white farmers. What we have to work out as Africans is how do we ensure beneficiation at the correct time? Because what is key, you need that machinery at a certain time, except the fact that you struggle to get to drive. In a society, we need everyone. But for me, the point is, if you are part of a collective ownership, because that what's at risk, how do we ensure that they come and plant your land at the time when the season requires it to be planted? Thank you.
Thank you, Mamujanaga. Thank you for your inputs. We need to emphasize on working together as collectives, because most of the farmers that are well established and from a particular race, they work together as a collective. I am told that Molokadi is part of our, she has joined. I will unmute her because she's been complaining that she can't unmute her mic so that she can make her submissions. Molokadi, please just raise up your hand so that I can see who are you. Then I can unmute you. All right. Okay. All right, Molokadi.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and women empowerment is in Bogoto in this wonderful webinar. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Mr. Rakolote. Can I go back to the previous speaker, because whatever she illustrated is what I had on my preparation about collective working as women, you know. So I'm gonna emphasize on the fact when we have to come up with a solution on what must be done in order for us to have our space and own our like take a space in agriculture. The thing is, we know from African background, if we can go back as there, that women, we are labeled as natural caregivers, you know. But there's a thing that comes with growth and development when we are in the sector of agriculture, that we need to strive to be more than just caregivers. We need to never to limit ourselves, you know, because when you talk about having somebody to drive the tractor, it's not impossible for a woman to drive a tractor. It's not impossible for a woman to plant 8 hectares. Yes, it's physically straining, but we need to allow ourselves, pertaining the sector that we are in, that we should be more than that. So I would like to really encourage her. Maybe we'll talk after this webinar on private. So based on the topic of dismantling gender inequalities, I in my workspace, it's more about teaching underprivileged communities, especially young people, about what agriculture is and how different and how improved it can change our lives. What I do, I offer service in facilitating and mentoring young community youth from communities based under Mining Qualification Authority. So these are the young people that are from communities that are developed around with mines, but they need to involve with agriculture. Out of the whole training that I've been inducting, you get to realize that we are still trapped in the stigma of what agriculture is. And women, we are still limited by the social standard. And at the same time, we are not seeing the bigger picture of what is agriculture or how can agriculture be. So with saying that, I realized that the government, although is offering this service and training support to youth, to women in agriculture, to people with disability, how do we move step further from just being general workers at the farms? And again, we all have to look at the ideology of how broad, it's not even ideology, sorry to say that, but how broad an agricultural sector is. We have to move from the mentality that is straining, the mentality that is for men, the mentality that is only for consumption. You see, when we start to look at agriculture as a means of consumption, where we have our backyard farms, but we don't commercialize that, that's where we're going to fail as African and as young people. And again, the land ownership distribution is still with the white people. And that is a fact that we cannot do away with it. Government needs to start to relook at the policies and programs pertaining on how do we distribute. It goes back to why can't women inherit own land? Why can't I personally, as Molohadi, have my land in my name? So in those things, we are taken into looking at who are these women that wants to take up the land? And to be qualified in agricultural sector as a female is the most common, the things that we can be grateful for. Because for who we are is to say that we are ready to take up that space. We have the knowledge, we have the skill, we have the support, but how long-term are these aspects or inputs given to a woman? So at that point, we say, well, what must be done is that let us as women allow ourselves to grow in the sector. Let us do what men can do. And let us look forward into changing the generation that is coming through. And again, I would love to give some gratitude to all the women that are working the ground currently, young and old, that have been in the agricultural field, especially those women that when you're a graduate and you go for a training, they are the ones that really facilitated and transferred the skills to us. And again, I need to give gratitude to the female graduates in agriculture, that you ladies are really taking a stand, a front line to provide, to give food to the nations. And again, also for taking a stand to feeding the nation. I also want to give the gratitude to our minister for being, from leading the mass as a female person, into making sure that women can be heard. If she can be in the front line, we we are soldiered behind her to say that the sector that we chose is very important and it should be recognized as such. So for an input when it comes to how do we change, we can talk about land ownership, we can talk about being qualified, we can talk about looking at the current situation. But the thing about agriculture is that it's a long-term goal and it evolves and it improves. So we cannot stuck here and talk about what should be done with a template of policies for 100 years ago. So it means that we can also come together and put on improving our policies and also engaging on what is it that should be done. Being a laborer in agriculture, it's more about being against the naturality of human life, where we know men have to work there, we know that is male dominant. So there's a stigma, social pressure, there's a stigma of why are you here in agriculture? There's a lot of things beside us owning the land. We still have many hoops to jump before we can be recognized that. So that is why today we are saying that, for me, is saying that I really proud of all the women and that are in agriculture, and surely because of them we can bring a lot of change for the generations to come. So that will be that in my closing, Mr. Rakolot.
Thank you so much, Molokadi. You spoke about agriculture being a long-term goal, which is evolving, and we cannot be talking about agriculture using the policies of some years ago. We, as women, must participate in improving the policies. And the other challenge is that we need to work on the stigmatization of the sector, because there's still some stigmas that is only for men that must work in the agricultural sector. Thank you so much, Molokadi. I will open up for participants in the webinar to make inputs and comments on the presentation of both panelists. And remember, we are saying what must be done to close the gender gap in the agricultural sector for us to have a non-sexist sector which is in agriculture. I'll take hands from other panel members, participants in the webinar. Make your inputs. I have seen an input from Dibiela who says, women have got strength like men, because there are women who are operating heavy machineries in the mine. So we cannot have an excuse to say women cannot operate a heavy machinery, because there's an example of women in the mining industry operating heavy machinery. So that should not be an excuse that women cannot drive tractors or operate any machinery in the farms. That's the input from Dibiela. I'll take some hands or inputs from other participants. Any inputs, comments from other participants? I'll take Date Abraham Leruli. You are on the floor, Date Leruli.
Thank you very much, facilitator and colleagues. Just to make a comment that there is this thing that women actually blame a lot of men for the fact that we don't come out openly to support their struggle for recognition in the various aspects of life. For my part, for us to be able to join here and participate is also an indication that we are supporting women. In most instances, it is us men who basically pull them down. It is us men who basically don't give them the space to lead. So the point I want to make here, facilitator and the women who are in in the event is that as men, we are really supporting the struggle for the women to be associated, to be recognized, for them to actually move. In terms of the issue that we're basically engaging today, I also share the same sentiments that women shouldn't take it that they are unable to do particular jobs. We are here to be able to support, we are here to be able to work with them, and we are here to give them the space for them to be able to be seen as leaders. That's the comment I wanted to indicate, Chair, and appreciate the comments and appreciate the engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leruli. Mr. Leruli is the chairperson of the Progressive PPF, the Progressive Professionals Forum in the country. Mayor Dibiela, you're on the floor.
Thank you. Chairperson, I heard what the gentleman just said, but I understand it comes from a good place. However, the challenges that women are facing, we can't just address them having men who are positive just saying, we are here to support women, as if we must overlook everything else just because there is a few who are not even a fraction of the population, the male population of South Africa, that are willing to support. I'm sorry, I'm at a very noisy place. That are willing to support women. I'm at a traditional function at home, so you'll bear with me. So, and Chair, I heard what he said. However, my contribution is that there is a need to have a concerted effort towards ensuring that women who are in agriculture are empowered financially and with other resources, the machinery and so on. And there is also a mentorship program for specifically women who are in agriculture. We know that we are from a very horrible past where women did not participate in agriculture. And for the same reasons that, number one, people believed that women cannot operate agricultural machinery. People believed that women cannot own land. People believed that women cannot manage farms and farming. So there is a need that the government and other sectors come in and assist in mentoring women who are willing and prepared to become farmers. Women who do not just see it as an opportunity to make money, but who are committed to farming, who are committed to agriculture. That will show that there is indeed commitment towards ensuring that there is empowerment of women in agriculture, there is empowerment of women in farming, so that they can also become commercial farmers. We do not have female commercial farmers at the moment. We don't. Even most of male African farmers are not commercial. We may think they are commercial, but they are not commercial. They do not even contribute because they are there at the tail end. So my point is empowerment of women and mentorship as well as support. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Medi Biela. Empowerment of women, financial support and mentorship programs to ensure that we level the playing field for women to participate. I'll take on again Molokadi.
Yes, not to say that we are taking Mr. Abram in that side, but it's one of the stereotyping thinking that we are facing. You understand that it's questionable why we are saying that you are encouraging us, but then you are encouraging us, but you're not letting us be. You see? Is that part where they be like, yes, go and do that, agriculture, there's money in that, but then when you comes to say, I'm the one that is leading you, it becomes a problem. And it's still something that continues to come even in our generations. Not to say that we don't know the exposure of the post democracy or before democracy and all that. It's something that says that we are socially like trapped on a stone because of this things has been done in this way for many years. And again, even as us as women, that's something like, if we are born to say we are natural caregivers, it should not limit us to a point that that's all you can do. All you have to do is to be in plant production because animals have more strength than women, and then you can't function. By says who? And it's that part where it says that even when I'm being encouraged as a young female farmer, it's not even on the commercial level. We are being limited to say, oh, you remain at a small, medium enterprise. We are supporting women and that. But then who are you looking up to as a small, as an MME entrepreneur? So those are some of them that is not just a cover blanket. We should not, especially when it comes to agriculture. It has faced so much of we still have to move assets from other community to the Black community. So it's both our job as male and female duties to move agriculture into Black land, into Black ownership, and it's still a duty of a Black man to support even when a woman in agriculture is doing that. Don't just say, no, we are supporting there. Let me be. Support me by letting me be. And then that we can say that, okay, this is actually allowing the gender equality back in, because you cannot be saying, well, I can't be led by a woman. Men, even in agriculture, they say, we cannot be led by a woman. So those are social antics that are just painting us as women, that even when we are qualified with the knowledge, yet we are still stuck in there. Thank you, Chair.
I don't know what happened with Molokadi. I'll take in Nella.
Thank you very much, Chair. You know, the comments from the House, I'm a very old person. So the matter of the land has been there for quite a long time. And I see that one of the people on the group actually posted that we must start with my municipal bylaws. When you look at the total land in this country, fertile land, 72% is owned by whites. 4% is owned by Africans, and the rest goes to other, groups. The point for me is, even at municipal level, the policies, we still use the policies that were introduced by the 72% who own the land, which means that the point that Molokadi has just made, which means that it's going to take a very long time before we get to where we are. And a case in point is Zimbabwe. So Sediko and the ladies, and I'm glad to see that the ministry is here. Sediko and the ladies who are in the group, let us make sure that when we leave here, we have a group of people, Langa, Grandma is in a meeting. We have a group of people who'll start with policy change. The Lancaster, agreement that Mugabe was fighting for. You see, that's why he lost it. He did not push this through. Ladies and gentlemen, the events that are happening around the country now, around the president and the corruption, the health sector and all these things. When you look at all these things, it goes back to the element of land. If we lose this, I'm telling you, we are going to be worse off than Zimbabwe. So we need to make sure that we get that 72% from the people. I'm not going to say they're not, but they are not the rightful owners. We are just apologetic as X. Thank you.
Thank you, Nella Mojanaga. The elephant in the room is the issue of land. She says you cannot address the issue of gender equality in agriculture if you don't address the issue of land. Let's take on other inputs from other colleagues. Any inputs from other colleagues on this matter?
Yeah.
Other inputs from other colleagues on this matter? Tabisen, your hand is up. Come in, Tabisen.
Thank you so much. Must I come in?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Let me end the video. Thank you so much for the discussion that you're having this morning and the inputs made by the participants. I think it's high time that we start looking at the key sectors in the economy and how we can look at how we make sure that there's equity. And I think one of the aspects that has already been mentioned by the speakers is the redistribution aspect. I think that I want to start with the point that if we problematize the issue of lack of access, I'm babysitting. Just hold on, sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
Maybe can you allow the other panelists or the other members? I'll come in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other members of the webinar wants to come in? Other members of the webinar want to come in? Please raise your hand. Just raise up your hand so that we can identify you. Eric, okay. Eric Makondo.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Eric.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I think there's a problem with your network, Mr. Makondo. Can you sort out the network? While please find a conducive space for you to have a right network, Mr. Makondo.
I think this is the biggest when I look at this topic.
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, and good afternoon to everyone. This is an important topic. I'm from Limpopo, and Limpopo is known of doing agriculture. I think, excuse me, I think our starting point should be going down to the municipalities because it's where there are rural areas where we do farming. And then we encourage even in schools that learners should take agriculture as a subject, going out to the institution of higher learning. Because if you check, there are many women selling vegetables, but they are buying these vegetables from men. It would be good if a woman is having a farm. They are selling vegetables everywhere. During lockdown, I've experienced a lot of men going around selling vegetables to the cars. But where are they getting those vegetables? And where are the women driving the cars selling their own vegetables? So women are just given like a lower preference. They should take a slur instead of the law for half. So government should do the audit. Like in Limpopo, there are areas where there's big land for farming and women are nowhere to be found. Why? Because of the customer law. Because they are not given chance or platform to lead or to take initiative. You don't have a husband, so you're not given a land. So that's a challenge. So it goes back to women that everywhere a slave, working, and these women that the one who are taking care of the kids, that the one who are making sure that the fire is burning. So it's this a serious challenge. It is causing a poverty. Unless government do auditing, come back to the municipality because it's where everything is happening. Do the roadshow, make sure there's a follow-up, and every 6 months or so, there's a reporting. I think we can go somewhere. Even lack of jobs and poverty, it can be minimal. So it's not a big job if we work with communities, but it's a big job if
we lost you there.
we work from the high offices because they don't know who is
We'll
who.
take
They
in
check everything.
Dr. Moleko. Mr. Makondo, we are struggling in hearing you. Can we take in Dr. Moleko, then we'll come in, Mr. Makondo. Dr. Moleko?
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you so much to the previous speaker. I wanted to say, acknowledge the inputs made by the speakers and the panel and the people that are here. I think the important thing is we need to acknowledge some of the problems that we have that lead us to the results. So one of them, I think we must accept that South Africa has two farming or two industries within farming. There's the highly capitalistic, large-scale farming production. Then there's the more rural or smaller scale subsistence farming and some of the emerging farmers. So this dualistic type farming outcome that you have is a result of our history. Now, the issue that I have is that as a result of the current type of dualistic farming in the main, and also agriculture and agricultural productivity, which is going to be my main point, not on the land, but the agricultural productivity and getting women and gender equity in farming requires you to look at the current structure of farming. So you see that there's a lot of, there's a consolidation and what we call an amalgamation of the big corporates. So this food production, we're all talking about food production, agro-processing, food security. But if you look at the detail of what's happening in South Africa right now, you need to understand that the big companies are swallowing up the smaller companies. The multinationals are also coming into the food value chain. The South African companies are being squeezed out. The emerging market farmers, emerging Black farmers are highly constrained because they don't control the price. They don't control the value chains. They don't control the supply chain that buy their product, and that squeeze them out of actually deriving a lot of value. So these are some of the structural issues that we need to discuss. And they also then go into the inequality in terms of access. So the big thing that we need to look at in terms of agriculture is that the agricultural liberalization has meant that 20% of farms are producing 80% of our food. I want to say that again. 20% of the farms are producing 80% of the food. So the food is coming from a small group of farms that control most of the food chain and the food supply. This is a paper that I'm citing by Dutoy, who looks at the level of the commercial farming control in farming. So until you break that oligopoly, until you break that, you're not going to deal with unequal access. So in the main, rural youth, rural women, Black women, engendering farming won't happen until you engender that commercial structure. That means you have to deal with that oligopoly. The other point I want to make on this same point is that the food concentration and value chain doesn't allow for the local markets to easily enter, the new entrants. So we're talking now about engendering the agricultural value chain. If you don't look at breaking the current supply chains to allow the new entrants in, to enable new entrants, particularly Black farmers, new entrants into these, and facilitate them to sell this product like maize, sugar, because remember the Tonga Tula, they are controlling the sugar value chain. The other vegetable supply, they are controlled by, so there's a certain somebody supplying Woolworths, supplying Pick and Pay, supplying all these retailers, and it's usually a minority of companies. And for you to meet the requirements, you need the department to obviously en masse support with the subsidies, with the implements, which they are trying to do if you look at the APPs and the programs. But it's not enough in the sense that it isn't leading to change in the structure of the farming. So I think one of the things we're doing now, I'm doing this as an academic and looking at it as to how can we then change this. I think there's alternative strategies. One, we need to support the small scale farmer. How do we do this? We need to look at the laws that control the oligopolies, break the oligopolies, break the control. It's the competition laws, it's the laws that enable amalgamation. we need to also look at the rural nodes. How do we improve food production, but also enabling access into the markets? So right now, if you can't access retail markets, for instance, the Spars, the Pick and Pay, the boxes, and you can't get your food in there, I can tell you, you don't have a place to sell. So you have to create alternative market structures that enable access for these new entrants. And then the last, I think, which is very key and a critical enabler in terms of food, is that you need to have deal with the issue of labor market failures and discrimination. So we know that patriarchy and the patriarchal norms that have a perception that women can't enter farming, women can't do artisans, women can't be manufacturers. This is a mindset and leads to exclusionary practices. So you actually have to go into the schools through career guidance, educate our learners. These are options. We need food production. African continent is going to be the biggest population in the next 30, 40 years. Who's producing that food? We need you to be farmers. We need you to go and produce tomatoes, to produce our maize, our cotton. You can do this. It's a skill that you can attain, but it requires a changing of mindset. So I think there's a multiplicity of interventions that needs to happen. And I think we need to focus on certain sectors and certain subsectors. But I think in the main, the structural things we must deal with so that we can allow new entrants. If we don't deal with those oligopolies, we will remain having a 20% for everyone else, and 3 or 4 or 5 companies in each of the subsectors are controlling everything. So I think we need to deal with those structural constraints that disable new entrants. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moleko. We need to break oligopolies. She says 20% of farmers are producing 80% of the food that we're consuming in the country. It's scary that the 80% of the food that we're finding in all the stores are produced by only 20% of our farmers. So we need to break oligopolies. Can I take the last round of inputs before we hand over to the minister to make closing remarks? I'll take Bosekhala. Bosekhala, you're on the floor.
Yes,
please switch on your video.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And good day to everyone. My question to the panelists, I want to check with them their views on the question of leadership structures. You would know we used to have the what or the what and the yard. But today, if you go to, let's say you go to Limpopo or you go to Eastern Cape, can we really find vibrant or solid structures that are leading issues of agricultural development as pushing the interest of women? I think that is one area where I think there's a gap. If we can indeed improve in that area, maybe we can see women progressing in agriculture. And in these structures, the other issue that one has realized is that you'll find that the structure is more on the operating using the top 5, the chairperson, the deputy chair, the secretary, and so on. But in real sense, if you want to push agriculture, you will need a structure that will have key committees that will push the areas where we see that there's a gap in empowering women, like the market access, training and capacity building. So you don't need a structure that will be based on the top 5 alone. And they're the ones who are attending meetings and everything. And when you come to technical issues, the structure is silent. So I think to our panelists, maybe just to get their views on that as to whether on the ground, if we go into the ground, are we really finding structures that are more of, pushing the issues of women as it relates to agricultural development? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sekhala. The question is that, are we having any leading structures within provinces or municipalities or what level that is pushing the agenda of women in agriculture? Are we having those structures within our communities? I will throw it back to panelists and all members of the webinar to respond. You are in Galaxy J4 call. You are in.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, for me, I think as Izitalandwe, like I said, we're so fortunate enough that the mayor of the district, which mayor of Engcobo district, was very encouraging for us to start. He even took a helping hand in donating some of the machinery that we might need, and the NYDA for us was very, very helpful. So I think when we talk about how we empowered, I think for some it's encouraging when the mayors, the ministers take part in what we are doing. Because for us, we are all graduates. We have I have masters in botany, and my other partners have masters in agriculture. So for us, I think it was very empowering that the district, the whole district of Krizani, was involved and was willing to help in any way that we needed. So for me, I think yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The group from East Holland, they're saying there is support at municipal level, in particular political support and even administrative support. They also had an assistance from NYDA. For others, are there any structures within your communities that are pushing an agenda of women in agriculture? That was a question from Ndadesi Khan. Can we take the last round of hands, then before we allow in the Honourable Minister to give the closing remarks and guidance on how can we break the gender inequalities in the agricultural sector? Molokhadi?
Yes, I feel like we do have. It still goes back to the social approach of it, but we do have, and it's for women to push even harder than the when how men actually push the doors. So we do have, I believe, in most all programs from nationals to actually world, they do encourage that. It's just that we don't push enough, or we're not being pushed enough, somehow like that. But we do have, we just have to knock at the right doors.
Thank you so much. Molokhadi also confirmed that there are some structures on the ground, but we still need to push hard. Before I take in the minister, there is a hand by Mobile Boyo. Mkize. Please come in, Mkize.
Thank you. Good day. Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mobile.
Yes, I'm Nomkabelo, actually.
Nomkabelo, sorry. Nomkabelo,
Yes.
sorry.
Yes, I can say in our community, GDAT has been very helpful. But with regards to the youth and agriculture, there's been a challenge because I was part of that organization. And then we realized that there's a limitation from the department. They do not allow the young farmers that are farming to grow to their level, because there's a certain level that we can participate on, but it's like the department is leading the organization. They're not allowing the youth in agriculture to lead the organization. So I think in somehow there's a way that they need to change that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Nomkabelo. The other thing that we are doing as a trust, we encourage people to collaborate. So please leave your contacts in the chat box so that other colleagues can contact you for you to collaborate and make sure that you are pushing the agenda of women in agriculture. So I encourage colleagues that are participating in this webinar to leave your contacts in the chat box so that you can continue engaging even after this webinar. Without a waste of time, let me then bring in Biake. Biake.
Kunjani baba?
Sanibonani no.
Ngiyabonga mina iyami iphuzu ukuthi into engibona ngayo i-agriculture. Abantu besifazane bangangena ku-agriculture. Kodwa umuntu ofuna avule phambili ukuthi bangene ku-agriculture. U-government, because u-government uyakwazi ukuthi ayenze imihlangano akhulume nabo somabhizinisi
akwazi ukubanika ama-incentives ukuthi bangangena kanjani bangasiza kanjani besifazane ukuthi bangene agriculture. Ngoba uma ukhuluma nge-agriculture asikhulumi nje ngokuthi uyalima kuphela, sikhuluma ngemakethe, sikhuluma ngamathulusi okusebenza, sikhuluma nge-packaging, sikhuluma umkhakha omningi, sikhuluma nge-agriculture. So uma sizokhuluma sithi abantu besifazane mabangene ku-agriculture kodwa sibasizi, kufanele ukuthi siyakhuluma nje ngoba asho usizo athi kufanele sibayenze ukuthi bangene, sibasekele ngayo yonke indlela ukuthi babambe iqhaza ukuthi bangene. Ngoba abelungu abamhlophe balawula yonke into and ebeni bancane. Manje ukuze thina sikhulume nabelungu ngeke bavuma ukukhuluma nathi, ugovernment uyefuna avume ukuthi ayenze imihlangano, sikhulume nawo madoda, siyenzile i-codes, siyenzile i-political phase 1, phase 2 manje. Vulani, uma lingavumi ukuvula kufanele kube nemizamo esiyenza ukuthi sibavule, kufanele sibaphoqe ukuthi bavule imakethe. Ngoba ngeke utshale uthengisa amaswiti, wayenza amaswiti, umkhiqizo wamaswiti uyothengisa kubani amaswiti? Uhulumeni makakhulume nabamhlophe namasomabhizinisi, ngoba nomhlaba omningi wase-South Africa uphethe abelungu bangaphandle, inkampani zangaphandle abavulele abantu besifazane imakethe. Uvulele abantu besifazane imakethe, uvulele abantu abamnyama imakethe. Ngicela ukuma lapho.
Thank you, Mpiake. He raises the issue of the market. When you talk about agriculture, you should not just be talking about planting. There must be an access to market. If there are no other hands, we need to allow the minister to make closing remarks because she's got other engagements. We need to allow her to make some closing remarks because she has some other engagements. Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, you are on the floor and welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson and the organizer of this webinar. And thank you to the panelists who actually came on board to raise critical issues that we need to deal with. Good afternoon to everybody. I must appreciate the work that we have been doing in really mobilizing different sectors of our society to really grapple with the matter, in my view, which is very important. Not only important now, but it has always been important among African communities. If you go back in history, even with women, they have been involved in the agricultural sector, albeit maybe as workers or as smallholder farmers, not largely commercial. But I thought in prefacing my response to, I just want to draw our, all ourselves and focus in terms of the topic that you have raised, dismantling gender inequality in the agricultural sector. But I thought it's important for us to look at why gender parity matters in our society. And that we are not just wanting as women to be part of everything for the sake of being part of it. Women in South Africa actually and globally make up more than 50% of our societies. And therefore, they are an important resource, they're important leaders in their own right in being able to determine the trajectories of our economy, whether politically, whether in the economy or even socially. And therefore, it's not like when we talk about gender inequality and the need to dismantle that inequality, women are being made a favor. I just thought it's important to also just share what the World Economic Forum says about the importance of gender parity. It says gender parity has a fundamental bearing on whether or not economies and societies thrive. Developing and deploying 1/2 of the world's available talent has a huge bearing on the growth, competitiveness, and future readiness of economies and businesses worldwide. The index ranking that they have undertaken as the World Economic Forum to assess how countries perform offer an effective means to benchmark progress that has been made through policy, through legislation, and other measures. They are designed to create global awareness of the challenges that gender gap pose, as well as the opportunities that emerge when action is taken to reduce this gap. If one looks at the 2020 and also year-on-year reports of the World Economic Forum gender gap, particularly their indices around major issues where they measure progress or non-progress by countries. I actually thought if one looks at that report, and I'll take just one index that they have used, relates to political representation in parliaments, legislature, local government, and the executive of countries. It does not only look at the numbers of how many women are in parliament or in the legislatures or councils, which is important because we talk about gender parity, and therefore these structures also must represent 50% of women in them. But they go deeper to ask questions whether that political representation of women in these structures, has they actually impacted on the influence that they make in lawmaking that will actually be gender sensitive and also take into interest of women specifically. It looks at whether or not where women are put at the helm in these structures, do they use their influence in actually ensuring that we move towards a gender parity. And looking at different countries, it does indicate that we're not yet there. Yes, the numbers may be there, but how we change the architect, which I think is what colleagues have also been raising, to say unless you make particular changes to ensure that we deal with issues of inequality, we're still going to be talking about the same issues. And what this means for me, the gender gap report of the World Economic Forum, it actually means that it's important to measure things because we cannot be able to assess adequately what we cannot see. In our own space in South Africa, for instance, we do not have as yet a model, or rather a tool, around which we can measure how many women are in the agricultural sector, in what subsectors of agriculture are these women found, professionally, how many do we have as women in the agricultural professions in our country, and where are they? Because they may be qualified as agricultural scientists, soil scientists, agricultural engineers, but they are not absorbed by our economy. If they are not absorbed by the state, they are not absorbed anywhere else, so they end up doing other jobs other than what they were trained for. And therefore, this measurement, in my view, would actually assist. 25 years on, even in our own sector, we do not yet have a template that can tell us how many women have benefited in government land reform program in order to deal with issues of access. How many of those women that we have, celebrated as Women Farmers of the Year in our provinces and nationally, and women agri-entrepreneurs have remained and even grown. So this is one of the tools, in my view, that I think will enable us to start to deal.
Sorry, colleagues, can you mute your mic?
Sorry.
You can continue, Minister. Sorry for that.
Thank you very much. I think for me, this is one of the tools that we need to actually put in place as a department, as part of our way to actually try to address the issues of inequity in our own society. Apart from your broad generic measures rather of the ownership of land in terms of race, and so we also need to do that in terms of gender, so that we can actually see how are we even changing that landscape of ownership. But also, I would like us, as we have been discussing, how do we build from the struggles of women who have gone before us, both in our country and globally? If one look at the South African situation even today, I think sometimes we tend to forget or maybe not celebrate much the struggles of women, particularly rural women, which was led by Abo Mamuliti Akomape, Beauty Mkhize, and others who fought against incorporation in the homeland system, who fought about the need for access for women, to land. But even lately, you've got structures of women who are married to chiefs, and I'll use Eastern Cape because that's the example that I know has actually worked and made some strides in Bumba Yamakosgas, who have started raising the issues within the traditional authorities of the need for women's access to land, not because of their proximity to men as husbands, fathers, and sons. And I think it's important to actually assist those women in those struggles because they are very critical in dealing with issues of stereotypes of our culture about women's access to land. But also, they are very important in enabling our society to appreciate that land is the means of production in terms of our economy. And that when we talk about economic transformation, particularly in the rural spaces, unless we deal with issues of land, we're not going to get anywhere. Similarly, as government, how do we assist women in terms of state land that is available, which is one point that was raised by other participants in the webinar? It's for that reason that particularly President, in announcing last year, when he said we will release immediately 700,000 hectares of land for agricultural purposes, we have taken that further to actually say 50% of that must go to women. There may be women cooperatives, there may be women individual farmers, there may be young women and so on. That's a commitment we have made. But that commitment needs activism from where I sit, because as we all know, even the gender struggles in South Africa, what women fought for wouldn't have been achieved if they only sat and only talked, but they actually acted in influencing the, different sectors at a particular point in time in their history. I also like the point that was made by one of the participants here about land not being the only important area that we need to make sure that there is access. We also need to also look at issues of machinery. Yes, I agree. Financial services, I agree, be they loan or grant, but also issues of technology and research, because we all know that in accessing markets, you do need to actually have an edge with some of your competitors. So the issues of research and access to technologies, particularly as we look at the changing of our economy post and even now within this pandemic, is going to require that in the way in which we produce, we do not continue in the old form of production. The issues of extension advisory services for me still remain important, because you do need, what we talk about mentorship, in my view, fits in this space, because by their very nature, extension officers are supposed to be there on a daily basis with the farmers to assist them in terms of the production, and also to understand what are the changes that they need to do, and so on and so on. How do we ensure that we assist women in terms of marketing? It's a question that was raised also by Ntabiseng, as well as trade. One of the things we do in the department, and I saw that amongst the team, there's one person from agriculture, we also assist people in terms of market access and share that information as where are the markets domestically, internationally, and even in our region. But we also need to understand what are the standards that are accepted by the various people with whom we trade or to whom we sell, so that we can ensure that our goods actually do get acceptable to those various markets. This is why part of the training that we do on SA Gap, it's about enabling farmers and our farm producers to be able to access markets, with compliance to the standards that are required locally and even internationally. Access to water becomes part of the important areas that we need to focus on, because without water, other sectors cannot, particularly subsectors of agriculture, cannot fare very well. But I also want to say issues of access to land, in my view, should be both about ownership and leasehold, because I may not have a position to acquire land, or I may not fit in the beneficiary selection of the state, but that doesn't mean I can't be a farmer. How do I actually access land that is on lease and negotiate terms that are relatively better so that I can focus on my production? The other area is, how do we also ensure that entry into agriculture, particularly for women, is not only on the production side? Because on the production side, which is more at a primary level, yes, it's important, but you also have tertiary level. There are other women whom I know, even now, African women, who have decided to enter into the agribusiness sector and actually be at the level of agro-processing. Others actually are agro-dealers, so they don't produce, they don't process, but they actually sell the farm inputs that other people are requiring into the farming sector. There are other people who enter the space in terms of agro-logistics, because we know that there are many farmers, even some of the large farmers, don't own the trucks to take their goods to the market. They actually have people whom they pay to do that work, whose business may be the transportation business, not only locally, but also internationally. Some of the people, as you know, actually operate vessels. That's what they do, to actually move your goods from one point at sea to the other point at sea. But that's still part of your agro-logistics that are required. Other people actually have got cooler fridges on wheels, which actually can move some of the fresh produce from one point to the other point of the market. But they are neither producers, they are neither agro-processors. I'm raising these things because it's important for us, when we look at the value chain of agriculture, we don't only look at production per se, though production is important, because some of us may not actually be wanting to be in the production side, but we may still be interested in the agricultural sector. And it's important, therefore, to look at how we open all these spaces. Lastly, I just want to say that as the department, we are actually in the process of working with the different sectors, and it would be good if women farmers who are here can also participate in that space, in terms of developing an agricultural sector master plan, which actually looks at the entirety of the value chain in the agricultural sector and how we deal with the transformation, which is an area that has been raised by participants here. Lastly, the issue, maybe let me not say lastly, because there are two other issues I want to raise. One of the issues that was raised by one colleague gentleman here about organization and also by Nomgqibelo. My view is government can work, can support farmers' organization, but government can't run farmers' organization, because if government does that, it would actually be problematic, because you do not allow people to exercise their right that is there in the Constitution of association with whoever they want. But the relationship can exist with government as it has with farmers' organization. So for me, WAT and others must be independent structures, not structures of government. Yet similarly, must be structures that are independent and are run by young farmers, not government. Government can engage with them in facilitation of the challenges that they are facing, and also where the opportunities are as we engage with other farmers' organizations. I would also say, you do have existing farmers' organization. It doesn't mean that if you are part of WAD, you can't be part of NAFU, you can't be part of the African Farmers Organization, you can't be part of FUSA or any other, because they play different roles which are critical. And therefore, it's important for us to take advantage of all of those. And as I finish, I just wanted to say, agriculture is a business like any other. There might be variations like it is in the other subsectors of the economy where, you know, the environment is different, it's difficult, it has got its own permutations. But importantly is that if this is a business, if in the way in which we deal with it ourselves as those who want to enter this sector, we must understand that government supports and enables, but it can run your enterprise. It is you who must be able to run that enterprise, see the opportunities, take the gap like you were going to do if you're a spaza shop business owner. A spaza shop business owner scans the environment, know what is required in this locality, and go and source those things and sell. And I would say it's the same approach we need to take in agriculture. That when you enter this sector, you must know that you are not entering it just to actually be there, but you are entering it because you are seeing a business opportunity, and therefore this is an enterprise. And therefore your relationship to the state must be that of engaging the state to facilitate the things that you require facilitation from the state, the things that on a regulatory environment the state must make, but you as an individual, as a collective of entrepreneurs, must be able to drive your enterprises to succeed. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Minister. We really appreciate. We are always honored to have you participating in our webinars. We are about to close. Let me announce that we have got in our midst our colleague from China, Xiaomio Harvard, who's challenging us to say if there's anyone amongst us with a business plan, which is they've done a feasibility study and a clear business plan, she's ready to link that person with partners from China. She's here in our midst to say, if you've got a clear business plan, submit it. I'm ready, I can link you up with the market from China. Xiaomio, thank you so much. Please leave your contact in the chat box so that those who are having the business plan and they are ready to get partners from China, you can link them up with the partners that you're having from China. Thank you so much for participating. Colleagues, we've come to the end of our webinar. This was a last webinar for the month of August. We'll be having some other webinars going forward in the month of September, October, November, and December. We are humbled by your participation in all the webinars that have been organized by Progressive Socio-Economic Investment Institute Trust. And we wish you all the best. Have a lovely afternoon. Be safe. Being in level 2 does not mean that COVID-19 is gone. Please take care of yourself. Thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon. Bye.